TheorySabers.com.
Episode 4 has just been released, and a lot of people are actually crapping on it.
You nearsighted scrap pile.
And what I mean by that is the original, very first issue of Episode 4 from 1977, The Star Wars, has resurfaced. I was actually speaking to someone from Misfits Boxing last week, and they said that they watched Episode 4, and I was like, okay, cool. And then he's like, no, like Kathleen Kennedy actually flew out and showed them at this festival the very original Episode 4.
I got a bad feeling about this.
Without any special features, anything doctored or finished or redone later on, like for special editions, like in the 90s or anything like that. This was like what people got to see essentially in 1977 when the movie came out. And a lot of articles, including the Hollywood Reporter, are commenting on how people are saying it is ass. And I have definitely a lot to say about it. So an audience was finally permitted to watch the first released version of the film, nearly perfectly preserved and unfaded, that creator George Lucas famously suppressed from being publicly shown on a big screen for 47 years. Now, if you didn't know, George is the type of guy that he will, if he still owned Star Wars, he would, let's say, doctor and change something up with Episode 4, and then he would hand that in to like the Film Association or a museum, saying that, no, this is the original. This is the real Episode 4. He feels that cinema is always changing, and an idea can always change with your story. So he's like, it's his story. He wants to change it when he wants to. That's why he was never a fan of the original stuff, because he was always changing things and improving it as time went by, either with the story or technology. The British Film Institute event was introduced by Lucasfilm boss Kathleen Kennedy, who joked that the screening was not illegal. What you're going to see is in fact the first print, and I'm not even sure there's another one quite like it, Kennedy said. It's that rare. Now, I don't know if George is cool with this, but he did not want this shown.
No way! No way!
I'm so sorry, George. I didn't think it would go like this.
Anymore. He didn't want anyone to, there's a reason why this is so difficult to uncover. It's because he didn't want the world to see it. I believe when I did an interview with Paul Hirsch, who worked on the original trilogy very closely with George, I think he revealed that George was actually contacted by a major museum to have like one of the original film for Episode 4, and George was like, no. And he gave them the special edition. And they're like, no, George, we want the very original. This is a museum. He's like, no, this is what you get. That's George for you.
Again, it's like poetry, so if they rhyme.
And the result, an attending film critic from The Telegraph who attended the screening last week admitted the unaltered original looks terrible by modern standards. And to me, that is probably the most obvious statement. I mean, if we were to go back in time 50 years, even 10 years, and look at medicine and technology and how we were curing some ailments in the 70s, it would look archaic. It would look barbaric. And so to compare it to today, is ridiculous. If you were to watch Star Trek and compare their medical advancements to today's, we literally look archaic and barbaric. So, are you going to go back in time and make fun of the carriages that were out there before the combustion engine? Before we had even trains? What are we going to... Where does it stop here? While fans understandably tend to focus on Lucas's most intrusive creative movies, adding the jarring CG version of Jabba the Hutt, having Greedo shoot first, stuffing distracting CG creatures and droids into Mos Eisley, the amount of subsequent polish and tweaks over the years is so extensive that many aspects of the original look just as noticeably fake as the egregious CG. I felt like I was watching a completely different film, wrote Robbie Collin, who called the print a joyously craggy, grubby, stolidly carpentered spectacle.
What?
Oh, these film critics be doing too much. That looks more like fancy dress than grand sci-fi epic. Every scene had the visceral sense of watching actual people photographed doing actual things with sets and props that had been physically sawn and glued into place. Yes, that's exactly how it was. The slapstick between C-3PO and R2-D2 looked clunkier and therefore funnier. The Death Star panels were less like supercomputers than wooden boards with lights stuck on, and so better attuned to the frequency of make-believe. It felt less like watching a blockbuster in the modern sense than the greatest game of dressing up in the desert anyone ever played. Right, well, it was the 70s, man. Back then, it blew all of our parents' minds out of the water, because that was like, holy crap, this is so futuristic. Today, not so much. And we'll be saying the same thing in the year 2070. A vlogger for Cinema Savvy, George Aldridge, who says he's seen A New Hope at least 100 times, said the screening was incredibly special, but likewise made him realize there are so many great changes to the Star Wars films. It's the ones we dislike that have always overshadowed them. He too noted the print was so radically different that it felt like watching the film for the first time. Yeah. You know what's weird? When I remember A New Hope, I watched the VHS before the special edition came out. So this would have been 1996, I think. Anyways, at some point I remember seeing the original. And at least I think I did. Or as original as it could have gotten before the special editions came out. And I remember seeing, when they were rotoscoping Luke's lightsaber, when he was training with the droid. And they literally, you could see they paused frame and they had the dowel in and all of a sudden it lit up. And then they paused frame again and the dowel was gone. It was just an empty hilt. Shout out Roger Christian. I don't know what it is about that and the film grain and the static here and there. I don't understand what it is about that for me personally, and I know everyone's different. It actually felt more like Star Wars than anything else. It felt more like Star Wars to me than even the prequel trilogy. Hang with me. Because it felt like how George wanted it to be, because it was a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. So it's supposed to be extremely sci-fi advanced, but it's supposed to feel old. Star Wars isn't supposed to feel necessarily new and sleek and, Blade Runner, for example, or to be super high-tech and flashy. Everything's supposed to feel old and grungy and rusty. It's a long time ago from a galaxy far, far away. That a long time ago carries very far. Most everything in Star Wars does look rather old. Nothing really looks like super pristine like Star Trek, where everything is new and prim. Is that even a word? Whatever. See what I'm saying? So for me, it felt, maybe that's just because it was the first watching of that, but I don't know. I just remember watching that one so many times where the lightsabers, you could tell, they just did not nearly look as good and as I remember Vader's lightsaber looked like pink. From day one, George Lucas has been making changes to these films, he said. It hasn't been just here's one big scene change here, there. It's been the little nuance. It's been the sound effects. It's been the smallest details, which you do not notice until now you don't see it. Aldridge noted differences like R2-D2 isn't hiding behind rocks when the Tusken Raiders come for them. There are so many little things that I noticed. The cantina, there's been cleaning up of James Earl Jones's voice, so ironically, a version of Star Wars that Lucas for so long didn't want shown seems to give viewers more respect for Lucas, due to gaining some appreciation for his extensive and controversial tinkering. Both reviewers noted, however, that the theater burst into applause when Han Solo shot first during the Greedo confrontation. Enthused Aldridge, Han Solo was so much cooler. Lucas's tweaks to the print began with the very first theatrical release of Star Wars in 1981. Until now, the studio has only permitted the screening of various special editions. I guess I've never seen the actual very first. Yeah, I've seen everything up until they did the special edition, I believe, because I remember those lightsabers did not look anything like they do today at all. They definitely looked old, because I remember researching how they did it when I was a kid, because I was like, this is so cool. Anyways, Lucas over the years has been rather firm about not screening the original, and when asked in 2004 by the Associated Press why he doesn't simply release the original version along with the special editions, rather grumpily shot back, the special edition, that's the one I wanted out there. The other movie, it's on VHS. If anybody wants it, I'm not going to spend we're talking millions of dollars here, the money and the time to refurbish that, because to me, it doesn't really exist anymore. It's like, this is the movie I wanted it to be, and I'm sorry you saw a half-completed film and fell in love with it, but I want it to be the way I want it to be. I'm the one who has to take responsibility for it. I'm the one who has to have everybody throw rocks at me all the time. So at least if they're going to throw rocks at me, they're going to throw rocks at me for something I love rather than something I think is not very good, or at least something I think is not finished. People really pushed George away from Star Wars, didn't they? It's unfortunate. Because now we have what we have with Disney. It's just
I have brought peace, freedom, justice, and security to my new empire.
Your new empire?
Yeah, look, I mean, big surprise, but I'm behind George on this one. I think that it's his project, and I don't think that he would have wanted Kathleen Kennedy to show that to anybody. Pretty sure he's probably pissed at this, to be honest. Yeah, anyways, just another move by Kathleen.
Again, it's like poetry, so if they rhyme.
I personally think that I would love to see the original myself, even though George doesn't want anyone to lay eyes on it. I would love to see the very, very original one. But what I got to see when I was a kid was a VHS. And maybe that was the I am still confused because I've never seen the original. So I've seen up until that special edition. So whatever that was, which was, it was pretty raw, man. It was pretty rough. And now on Disney, it just looks completely, it looks too crisp, too clean. I feel like at least Disney should offer like a non-special edition version, you know, the VHS version. I don't know if they do actually, but so all these people saying that, you know, now episode 4 doesn't look as good, and critics begin to reevaluate George Lucas's great changes. They say it looks terrible. Well, you're comparing it to today. And if we compare anything that's 50 years ago, it's not really going to look all that great. But for the time, it was. Just like when we all make certain decisions in life, at the time, that's the best we could do with what we had. Would we make a decision differently 50 years later? Probably, yeah. So that's the same with episode 4. At the end of the day, it created the most successful, I would say, franchise ever. Maybe not anymore, but hopefully one day again, if they get their act in order over there. As always, I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on this. Do you think that the hate for the original episode 4 is warranted? Or do you think people are just kind of comparing things, you know, too far away, 50 years later, and it's just a little too far? Technology-wise, things have really changed. So we've become too used to, you know, having better CGI with an app on our phone than what cost George, you know, tens of millions. It was $30 million. Actually, I think episode 4 was 11 million. Yeah, 11 million. So episode 4 cost $11 million. Last Jedi, 300 million. That's crazy. Inflation, I suppose we can call it that. Whatever. I'm with George on this one. So thanks for watching. Have a great day, everybody.